You ever get that weird feeling like the world just goes still? Like the air changes and you're suddenly the only person left in it? That was me, somewhere past Miller's Field, twisting mountain roads, snow coming down harder than I expected, and not a single car in sight. I had maybe 20 minutes left to Leo's cabin, but that stretch felt like it belonged to some other place entirely. No houses, no stores, just trees leaning in, like they were eavesdropping. I had the radio off, partly because reception was trash out there, and partly because, I don't know, it just didn't feel right to have music on. The only thing I could hear was the snow under my tires, the occasional creak of the suspension. It was peaceful, in a way, until it wasn't. I noticed the needle on the temperature gauge starting to twitch up, and at first I told myself it was just a blip. Trucks act weird in the cold, but then it kept climbing, fast, into the red like it had somewhere urgent to be. I pulled over, steam already hissing out the front. The headlights barely lit anything beyond the tree line. I popped the hood, stood there for a minute just staring at the engine like it would tell me what was wrong. I don't know why I expected to see anything. I'm not a mechanic, especially not in the dark, in the snow, in the middle of goddamn nowhere. And that's when I looked at my phone. No signal, not a single bar, not even the emergency service text. Just me, my overheating truck, and an empty road that felt too quiet, like it had been waiting for something to go wrong, and it just did. Time moves different when you're stranded. Like, I don't know how long I sat there exactly, but the cold was starting to creep into my boots, and every couple of minutes I'd check my phone like maybe it had changed its mind and decided to find a signal. It didn't. I kept the hazards on. Not that it did much good. No one was coming. Just miles of snow-covered trees and road that curled out into darkness. I remember leaning my head against the steering wheel, just cycling through dumb ideas. Should I walk? Should I try driving slowly with the engine like that? None of them made sense. Then, finally, headlights. Behind me, just showing up out of the void. My first reaction wasn't even relief, it was just surprise. Like I'd forgotten other people existed. The car slowed, this little beat-up Subaru, and I was already halfway out the truck before it even stopped. The guy driving looked pretty average. Mid-30s, plain jacket, nothing weird. But he didn't roll down his window right away, just stared at me for a few seconds longer than felt normal. Then he handed me his phone like he knew exactly what I needed. I made the calls, Leo picked up, told me a local tow service to try. They both answered, both said they were coming. All good on paper. But what gets me is how the guy never really said a word. Not even small talk. He just sat there, in the driver's seat, watching me through the window. Didn't nod, didn't smile. Just there. When I handed the phone back, he took it, rolled his window up, and drove off like it was all choreographed. I keep thinking about that moment. Not what he did, but why was he even out there? I got back in the truck after using that guy's phone, and the first thing I noticed was this soft click, like the door hadn't shut all the way. I glanced over, and yeah, the passenger side was slightly open, just cracked enough to catch. At first I figured maybe the cold had messed with the latch, or maybe I didn't close it hard enough earlier, but I know I locked the doors when I pulled over. It's just something I do automatically, especially when I'm out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but snow and trees. I even remember hearing the locks click when I hit the button. I'm not careless about stuff like that, not out here. But there it was, open. And I mean nothing looked touched. My gear was still in the back seat, glove box closed, nothing missing, just different. The floor mat on that side was damp in a weird way, like someone had stepped in with snow on their boots and it had melted part way. The print was messy, not really a clear footprint, but something had been there. I sat there trying to convince myself I was overthinking. Maybe I'd leaned over and popped it somehow when I got out. Maybe I didn't pull it shut all the way before calling Leo. But the longer I sat with it, the more it bugged me. I couldn't let it go, because if it had been open the whole time, wouldn't I have noticed the cold air blowing in? Wouldn't the dome light have stayed on? It didn't add up. None of it did. And the worst part was how quiet everything stayed after. Like whatever had happened already came and went, and I missed it completely. I don't even know why I did it. I was just sitting there, in that dead silence, engine idling low, everything outside swallowed in white. And then I reached over and flicked the headlights off. Not for any reason, really, just this dumb instinct to feel the full weight of how alone I really was. It was instant. Everything disappeared. Not a sliver of moonlight. Not even that soft glow you get bouncing off snow sometimes. Just nothing. Like someone had dropped a curtain over the whole world. I couldn't even see my own hands on the wheel. The dash lights weren't cutting through it either. It felt like I'd blinked and forgotten how to open my eyes again. I sat like that for maybe a minute, maybe longer, just listening to the tick of the engine and my own thoughts getting louder and louder. I kept thinking about that door, that guy, that moment when the Subaru drove off and I didn't look back. Should I have? And then bang. No warning, no sound approaching, no crunching boots in snow, just this hard, sudden knock on the passenger side window. I flinched so hard I almost hit the horn. I turned fast and tried to see, but the angle was off and everything was still too dark. I could barely make out a figure, big coat, hood up, leaned in like he was pressing into the glass. His arms were moving. He was yelling, muffled, frantic, something about being lost, something about freezing, but none of it made sense. There hadn't been any cars, no footsteps, no light, just him all of a sudden, like he materialized out of the trees. I kept staring at him, but all I could think was, how the hell did he get here? At first I told myself he was just desperate, cold, probably scared, maybe not thinking straight, but when I saw the handle twitch, that jagged little pull like he was expecting it to just open up, that's when something shifted in my brain. It stopped feeling like a stranger needing help and started feeling like I was being tested, like he was seeing how far he could push it. I didn't move. I just sat there, completely still, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. I kept telling myself, don't overreact, don't panic. He could just be panicking himself. But the pounding started again, and it was different this time. He wasn't tapping. He was slamming his fist into the glass. Hard, repeated, like he wasn't asking anymore. He was demanding. The truck suddenly felt way smaller than it had 5 minutes ago. I was boxed in by snowbanks on both sides, forest pressing in behind me, and that engine, already on borrowed time, humming like it was about to give out. I knew turning the key might be the last thing it could take, but sitting there wasn't an option anymore. He kept shouting, but it was garbled, not even words at that point, just raw noise. I grabbed the shifter and dropped it into drive without thinking. Tires spun a bit before catching, but when they did, I floored it, not fast, but enough to lurch the truck forward, enough to make him slam his hand once more against the door before I pulled away. I didn't even look back to see what he did after. Didn't want to. All I remember thinking, over and over, louder than the engine, louder than everything, was I need to get away from here now. The road dipped just after a bend, a soft curve. I didn't even remember passing on the way up. I crested it, engine whining under the strain, and that's when I saw it, tail lights. Dim, idle, just sitting there in the snow like they'd been waiting. It was the same Subaru. No doubt, same shape, same faded bumper sticker half peeled off the back. It wasn't moving, parked to the side like someone had pulled over casually, like they'd stopped to check something or take a call. Except the road was empty. Just me in that car. I slowed down, part instinct, part something I couldn't name. I looked through the driver's side window as I passed. No one, not in the front seat, not in the passenger side. The dome light wasn't on, no door open, just empty. But as I rolled by, my tail lights caught something behind it, tracks, footprints, deep and recent, trailing from the driver's side around the back and straight off into the trees. No turnaround. No sign of someone coming back, just a clean line, out. And that's when everything sort of locked into place in my head like puzzle pieces snapping in but still showing the wrong picture. The guy who'd been banging on my window, it had to be him. The same quiet stranger who handed me his phone earlier without a word. Same build, same coat, same complete lack of explanation. He'd parked back here after leaving me, walked through the woods, doubled back. Why? What was the point? It wasn't random. It couldn't be. but it also didn't follow any logic I could come up with. If he'd wanted to hurt me, why not then? Why wait? Why scare me? None of it made any damn sense. And maybe that's what really stuck with me. The tow truck came up the road like salvation, slow and clunky, headlights wobbling across the snow. I don't think I've ever flagged someone down with that much desperation. My arm was already out the window before he even got close. I don't know what I expected to feel in that moment. Relief, maybe, but mostly I just felt wired, on edge, like I was waiting for something else to go wrong. When the driver stepped out, I launched into this half-panicked mess of an explanation about the guy on the road. The door, the footprints, the Subaru, all of it. But saying it out loud made it sound off, like I was pulling details from a dream or a story I half remembered. I could tell by the look on his face he didn't think I was lying, but he also wasn't surprised. That part stuck with me. He just nodded, said something about people doing weird shit out here, and got to work like he'd heard it before. We didn't talk much after that. He hitched up the truck in maybe 10 minutes flat, and I didn't turn around once while it happened. I didn't want to see that Subaru again. Didn't want to see footprints, or worse, nothing at all. I just sat in the cab of the tow truck staring at the road ahead like that was the only safe direction. Leo met us at the shop later. We didn't talk about it much. The mechanic swapped out the water pump, told me it was a common failure in older models. I sold the truck 2 weeks later, but I still replay that night more than I'd like to admit. The way the door was open, the way the snow told a different story than what I saw. That Subaru. That guy. I don't know what he wanted. I don't think I ever will. You know how, when you drive the same road enough times, it starts to feel like background noise. That's how it was for me. I'd finish my shift, usually around midnight, and just coast down the back roads of Westridge like I'd done 100 times before. It wasn't exactly scenic, cornfields on one side, woods on the other, but I liked the quiet. No lights, no traffic, just me, my car, and that long stretch of empty road. I guess you could say it was peaceful, familiar. That night didn't feel different at first. I remember the air was thick, mid-July I think. I had the top down on my convertible, which probably wasn't the smartest move, but it helped. I liked the way the wind cut through the leftover heat of the day. I remember thinking how still everything was. Not even the bugs were making noise. It was the kind of silence that creeps in slow and fills every corner. But I didn't think much of it at the time. I wasn't tired, not really. Just in that weird dazed state you get after working late, where your brain's on autopilot and your hands just follow the wheel. The headlights carved out just enough of the road ahead to keep me grounded. There were no signs of life, no passing cars, not even a porch light in the distance. And that was normal. That was the routine. So when I say nothing about that night felt off, at first I mean it. If you'd asked me, I'd have told you I was 20 minutes from home and looking forward to crashing. I wasn't scared. I wasn't suspicious. I was just driving home, like always. And that's what still messes with me. It happened fast, but somehow it felt drawn out, like time stalled for a second. One moment I'm just cruising, barely even registering the road, probably zoning out to some late-night playlist. Then out of nowhere, this scream cuts through everything. Loud, sharp, real raw. It hit me like someone dropped ice water down my spine. It wasn't like a coyote or some animal shrieking in the distance. I've heard those before. This was different, human. There was panic in it, this jagged edge of desperation that made my stomach flip. The kind of sound that doesn't just make you turn your head, it stops you cold. I hit the brakes without even thinking. Just sat there in the middle of the road for a second, hands still on the wheel, trying to catch up with what I just heard. The engine idled. The wind kept blowing in through the open top, but everything else went still. It was like the world was holding its breath. The weirdest part was, I couldn't tell where it came from. It sounded like it came from everywhere, like both sides of the road at once. I turned my head left, cornfield. Right, woods. Nothing moved. No rustling, no branches cracking, nothing that could have followed a scream like that. Just silence. Eventually, I figured it had to be the woods. I mean, it made more sense, right? But even now, I wonder if I just decided that because I had to decide something, I couldn't just sit there in my car all night trying to make sense of it. Still, I remember thinking, what if I imagined it? What if I didn't? I don't know. I honestly don't. It wasn't brave. I wasn't thinking about heroics or saving anyone. It was just instinct. Something felt wrong, and sitting in my car doing nothing felt worse than stepping into the dark. I popped the glove box, grabbed the flashlight. I hadn't used it in months, maybe years, and clicked it on. Dim, but working. That was enough. I stepped off the gravel shoulder, down into the ditch and into the trees. The second I crossed that threshold from road to woods, it felt different. The air was thicker. Sound changed. My footsteps were muffled by layers of dead leaves and soft dirt, but everything else, the crickets, the wind, just kind of stopped. I kept walking, slowly, carefully, one foot in front of the other. I could still hear the voice. Not clearly, but enough. It would rise up out of the stillness, sharp and sudden, and then vanish again. Like it was waiting, like it wanted me to follow but wasn't in a hurry to be found. There was never a clear direction, just that same desperate tone, always echoing from somewhere ahead, or maybe to the side. I couldn't pin it down. It didn't get louder, didn't fade either. Just hovered. I started to wonder if I was chasing something that didn't want to be caught, or maybe something that did, and that was worse. I remember pushing branches out of the way, brushing off spider webs, trying not to think about how far off the road I'd already gone. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't have a phone signal. I didn't even know what I was expecting to find. I just kept walking, because stopping felt like giving up, and somehow, not going in felt like it would have been worse. I don't know how far I'd gone by that point. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe more. Everything in the woods felt disorienting. The trees all looked the same, the path behind me already swallowed by shadows. And that voice, it still echoed at the same exact distance. Never closer, never clearer. I kept telling myself I'd turn back soon. Just a few more steps, just make sure no one actually needed help. That's all. Then I saw it. It wasn't a clearing. Exactly, more like a patch of ground that had been disturbed in a way that didn't match the rest of the forest. The soil was flattened. Leaves had been kicked aside. There were torn up food wrappers half buried in the dirt. Some cheap brand of chips, maybe. I don't even remember. And just off to the side, shoved halfway under a fallen log, was what looked like an old blanket. Or maybe it was a jacket. It was hard to tell in the dim beam of the flashlight. There was also a plastic water bottle lying on its side. Still had some water in it. I nudged it with my foot. No label. That shouldn't have been a big deal. But for some reason it made me feel worse. Like whoever left it didn't want to be recognized. Or maybe they'd been in a hurry. I crouched for a second, just looking around, not sure what I was looking for. That's when it really hit me. This wasn't some old junk left by hikers. This was recent, and it wasn't casual. Someone had been staying here. Watching, hiding, I don't know. I stood up fast, heart racing. I suddenly couldn't shake the feeling that someone else was still out there, not far, watching me the whole time. There's a weird thing that happens when you've been walking in the dark for a while. You lose your sense of time, of distance. You tell yourself you've only gone a little farther, maybe a few hundred feet, but it starts to feel like the road, the car, the real world, slipped away somewhere behind you. That's what it felt like. I was still following that voice, or the memory of it. But the woods weren't changing, not even a little. No trail, no clearing, no new sounds, just more trees, same kind, same spacing, like I was walking in a loop. Or like the forest itself was copying and pasting itself around me. It sounds dramatic, but it didn't feel dramatic in the moment. It was subtle, like my brain knew something wasn't quite right before I could put words to it. And the voice, that was the worst part. It kept calling out, but it didn't shift in volume or direction. It stayed exactly the same, not closer, not farther, like it was stuck, or maybe I was stuck. I started wondering if I'd just imagined it entirely. Maybe I'd heard something once and my brain filled in the rest, or maybe it was never real to begin with. Eventually I stopped walking, just stood there, flashlight hanging by my side, and let the quiet settle. I listened hard. Nothing moved, not even the wind, That's when I felt it, that weird, sick weight in the gut that tells you something's off. Not in a movie way, not dramatic, just wrong, like something was out of step with the world. I should have turned back then. I think I knew that, but I didn't. I just stood there, trying to understand why the woods suddenly felt like they'd never let me out. There wasn't a big decision moment. No dramatic I have to get out of here kind of thing. I just turned around, slowly, flashlight still on, hand kind of trembling without me realizing it. I figured if I retraced my steps, I'd be back at the road in no time. The voice was still there, still echoing behind me like it hadn't noticed I'd stopped chasing it. That bothered me more than I expected. At first, I walked, nothing urgent, just a steady pace, trying to stay calm, but as I moved, I noticed the brush felt different, thicker, more tangled. I don't remember it being that hard to get through on the way in. Branches scraped at my arms and the ground felt softer somehow, like it wanted to pull me down a little more with every step. I kept glancing over my shoulder, not because I thought I'd see anything, but because it felt like I should. The voice didn't fade, it didn't even shift. Still that same sound, spaced out every few seconds, like it was marking time. That's when the real fear set in. It wasn't just that I couldn't shake it, it was that it wasn't responding to me at all. Not louder, not quieter, just there, like it was playing on a loop, and I wasn't sure anymore if I was moving away from it, or if it was moving with me. I didn't feel hunted. That's not quite it. I felt accompanied. That's the only word I've been able to land on. Like whatever was out there had decided to come along for the walk back. Not threatening, not comforting, just present. And I knew deep down I wasn't leaving the woods alone. I wasn't even looking for it. I was just flipping through channels one morning, not really awake yet, and there it was, local news, some anchor with that unreadable expression they always wear. They were talking about a body, a woman, found in the woods along Route 6, not far from where I'd stopped that night. They didn't say much, no name, no picture, just that a man walking his dog had come across her, and that the police weren't treating it as a crime scene. No signs of trauma, no cause of death yet, just found, like that. I remember freezing when I heard it. My coffee went cold in my hand. I don't even think I blinked. I don't know if it was her. I don't know if it was anyone at all, really. Could have been coincidence. Probably was. That patch of woods stretches for miles and people go missing all the time. It doesn't have to be connected. But the timing, it stuck with me. The location too. And the voice. That scream. The way it felt, too perfect, too staged. I've replayed that night over and over in my head. Like there's something I missed. Some clue that would make all the pieces click into place. But nothing ever does. Sometimes I think I should have gone deeper. Maybe she was real. Maybe she needed help. But other times, I wonder if I was being lured. If that voice was never hers. Or if it even existed at all. I'll never know. That's the part that eats at me. Whether I did the right thing or the worst possible one. Either way, something in those woods stayed with me. Something I can't name. Something I still feel when the road gets too quiet. You ever look back at a moment and feel like you were living in a bubble that only existed for a short while? One of those quiet pockets in time where you thought things made sense. Yeah, that was me with Mila. Back then, I was still living with my mom in Ashfield. Not exactly a glamorous place. Just rows of houses that all looked a little tired, like the people inside them. My parents had split when I was barely old enough to speak, and even though I couldn't remember much from that time, it stuck with me. You grow up learning not to expect permanence. So when Mila came into my life, part of me never really believed she'd stay, but I held on to her anyway. She was my first girlfriend, first everything. Really, we were both 17, both grinding through senior year, both working crappy jobs. I stocked shelves at that little corner market across from the auto shop, the one where the freezer doors never closed. Right. She worked at one of those fluorescent lit coffee chains where they misspell your name on purpose. Fridays were usually the worst. Long shifts, noisy customers, and the kind of tired that sinks into your bones. But this one Friday felt lighter, like the weight wasn't pressing down as hard. I don't know why, but I felt this pull to make something happen. Nothing big. I didn't have the money for big. But something real. I figured maybe if we just had a few hours together, no homework, no stress, no pretending to be grown-ups, it might be enough. I wanted it to matter, even if it was cheap. I think part of me hoped that she'd see what I was trying to do, that she'd feel it too. Maybe she did. I still don't know. I remember driving to her place with the windows rolled down, that early evening air just cool enough to feel like fall was creeping in. Neela slid into the passenger seat, with that half smile she always gave when she was trying to be polite, but not overly excited. I didn't blame her. I didn't exactly have fireworks planned. We ended up at this place on Elmwood. You know the kind of diner I'm talking about, where the neon sign flickers and there's probably still cigarette burns on the counter from the 90s. The floor had that faint stick when you walked, and every ketchup bottle was a different brand or half empty. I think there was a jukebox, but no one ever used it. We grabbed a booth by the window. The leather was cracked in spots, the kind that pinches if you shift wrong. I ordered us fries and a couple of grilled cheese sandwiches. Cheap, salty, comfort food. I tried to carry the night with small talk, school stuff, dumb stories from work, but Mila kept glancing out the window. Not in a dramatic way, just like she was somewhere else. There was this look on her face, like she was watching the world move and wondering if she was missing something. Like maybe the streetlights and empty sidewalks held more promise than the guy sitting across from her. I told myself it was just a moment, just her zoning out, but part of me knew better. Still, I tried not to let it ruin the night. I kept telling myself the effort counted, that being present, even in this rundown little place, meant something, that maybe, somehow, it was enough. But the way she looked out that window, it stuck with me, like she was already thinking about the next place we'd go, without saying it. I didn't have some grand idea to take her out to the middle of nowhere. I wish I could say it was a plan, something thoughtful or poetic. But the truth is, I just didn't want the night to end yet. After we left the diner, neither of us said much. She didn't ask to be dropped off, and I didn't ask what she wanted to do next. I just kept driving. We drifted out of Ashfield without even noticing. The streets got wider, emptier. Storefronts gave way to quiet homes, then fields, then stretches of road with nothing on either side but trees. The air changed too. Less traffic. More space between thoughts. Every now and then, I glanced over at her, but her face didn't give anything away. Eventually, we passed the last gas station I recognized, then the last streetlight, then nothing. Just my headlights slicing through the dark and that low, constant hum from the engine. Somewhere along the way, I saw the sign, McAlpine Trail, that washed out green kind with peeling white letters. I turned without really thinking about it. That's when the quiet hit different. Not the kind you get when things are calm, but the kind that presses in. The kind that makes you feel like you're not supposed to be there. I remember my arms feeling too light on the steering wheel, like I wasn't grounded anymore. And the road, it stopped being paved at some point. Gravel crunched beneath the tires, and every bump felt louder than it should have. There weren't any other cars. No other people. Just trees, sky, and whatever waited out there in the dark. I didn't say it out loud, but something about that road made me sit up straighter, like I was waiting for something, and I didn't know if it was good or bad. We'd been driving for a while, long enough for the silence to stretch and change. Not the kind of silence you get when you run out of things to say, more like the kind that starts to listen back. Mila shifted in her seat, mentioned she had to pee. Truth is, I did too. I didn't want to stop, but there wasn't much choice. We hadn't seen another car in maybe 20 minutes, and the gravel road we were on didn't offer much in the way of options. So I pulled off to the side. Trees pressed in from both ends like they were growing toward the middle. The headlights barely lit anything. We got out, both moving quiet, like we didn't want to wake something up. I was scanning the ground, trying to find a spot that wasn't just roots and brush. When I almost stepped on it, a shoe, small, a kid's maybe. Just one, half buried in the dust, like it had been dropped a long time ago, but it didn't look weathered enough to be ancient. It didn't make sense. No trail leading up to it, no second shoe, no wrappers or beer cans or whatever else you'd expect from people stopping out here. It was just sitting there, too centered, too still, like it had been placed, not lost. I didn't say anything to Mila. She was already walking a few feet ahead, probably just trying to get it over with. I stood there for a second longer than I needed to, staring at that shoe, wondering what kind of story it was trying to tell, if it was even a story at all, or just my head playing tricks on me. But even then, something about it felt wrong, and I didn't want to admit that out loud. I remember walking back to the car and realizing how different everything sounded, or maybe how little it did. There was no breeze, no crickets, just this dense weighted quiet that made every step feel like I was snapping a twig in a library. Even the gravel under our shoes seemed too loud. We weren't talking, neither of us said a word, and it wasn't some unspoken agreement. It was like the air itself didn't want us to speak. I was focused on getting to the car, head down, eyes flicking between the path and the trees, just trying to pretend nothing was off. Then it happened, off to our left. A crack. Not the kind that happens when a small animal bolts through underbrush. Not a rustle or a twitch. This was sharp, meaty, like someone stepped down hard on a thick branch without caring how much noise they made. And that was the part that really got to me. The carelessness. It didn't feel accidental. I froze. Not all the way, but enough that my legs felt like they had to be convinced to keep moving. I didn't look at Mila. I didn't want to see the same fear on her face I was trying to shove down in mine. I told myself it could have been a deer, maybe a fox, something normal, something natural. But there was this feeling crawling up my neck, this hot electric tension that made my shoulders go stiff, like something just outside the line of vision had noticed us first. I wanted to believe it was nothing. I really did, but we moved faster, without a word. Like whatever was watching us didn't want us to run just yet, but we both knew we weren't supposed to be there. I was maybe 2 steps from the car when it happened, the kind of scream that hits you low in your ribs before your brain even processes it. It wasn't close enough to feel, but not close enough to see. Raw, ragged, human. I froze. For a second I thought it could have been anything, an animal in heat, someone messing around in the woods. But no. It wasn't an accident. It was pain or panic. Maybe both. I didn't know what made me walk toward it. Maybe I thought I could help. Maybe I needed it to be less awful than it sounded. Mila stayed by the car. I knew she wanted to leave. I think she said something, but it didn't register. I had tunnel vision, just a few feet between me and where the noise came from. I took my phone out, turned on the flashlight, but the beam wasn't strong enough. Everything around me was just shapes and shadows, so I lifted it and snapped a photo. The flash popped. That quick white burst cut through the dark for half a second, and in that half second I saw him. A man, just standing there. Still, stiff, like he wasn't surprised to be seen. He wore a white shirt with stripes, dark pants. He didn't move, not even to blink. But it was what was in front of him that really sent something sharp down my spine. A blue tarp, unfolded, flat, like it was waiting for something, or had just been used. I didn't check the photo right away. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My body moved before my brain could keep up. I turned, ran, felt the gravel kick up behind me. I didn't stop moving until the car door was shut and the engine was screaming under my foot. I don't even remember shifting the car into drive. I just remember the sound, gravel spitting out behind us like we were trying to outrun something we couldn't name. I kept my eyes on the road, knuckles locked around the wheel, and everything outside the headlights blurred into one long smear of black. I don't know how long we drove before we hit the first intersection with working lights, but that was the first time I realized I'd been holding my breath. Mila asked me what I saw, more than once I think. I kept shaking my head like I was trying to clear it. But nothing was clearing. I couldn't find the words that didn't sound insane. Even in my own head, the memory already felt warped, like a dream someone else had told me. We got back to her house. No one else was home. We didn't turn on any lights. Just sat there on the floor of her room, backs against the bed, the picture on my phone between us. I showed it to her without saying anything. That was worse, I think. Seeing it. Seeing that it wasn't just me. Neither of us slept. The room got brighter, little by little, but we didn't move. The picture stayed open on my phone screen, and I just kept staring at it like it would suddenly make sense. Like there was some detail I missed that would make it less awful. We're not together anymore. Life pulled us in different directions, I guess. But we never really talked about that night again. Not in full, just pieces. And still, every now and then I wonder, what if we'd stopped earlier? What if I hadn't turned? What if I hadn't looked back? Would it have changed anything? I don't think I want to know. You know those nights that don't really have a beginning or an end, just this long, slow blur of time slipping through the cracks. That's what this one was. Late summer in Jefferson County. The kind of summer where everything feels like it's ending, but not fast enough to matter. I was almost 18. Thought I knew a thing or two. Caleb was with me, my cousin. A couple years younger, but he felt like my little shadow back then. Never said no to a night drive. Out here, everything dies early. Stores shut by 9. Town folds in on itself by 10. If you're not sitting on a porch swatting bugs or catching a movie in Sevierville, there's not much left to do. But we always found ways to make the hours pass. That night, we started with the usual mall food we didn't want. Arcade games that felt more like routines than fun, and then just rolling around in my old Chevy, windows down, music low. It wasn't really about doing anything. It was about not being stuck inside, not feeling like the summer had already said goodbye. We weren't chasing anything specific, just hoping maybe something strange or fun or weird would find us. That kind of restless energy builds when you've got nothing better to do but refuse to go home. And I guess we both kind of wanted the night to give us a story. Not necessarily a good one, just something that would stick. We didn't know it yet, but we were about to get exactly that, just not in the way we wanted. It started off harmless, how all the bad ones usually do. You look back and think, yeah, that was the moment we should have just gone home. But of course we didn't. Milford wasn't really a destination. It was just somewhere we ended up when we ran out of other places to kill time. Small town, mostly quiet, kind of stuck in the past. The kind of place where old shops hang on by a thread, and back alleys feel like they've seen things they'd never talk about. We didn't have a reason to be there. That's just where the night pulled us. There's this alley behind what used to be a laundromat. Might have been a dry cleaner before that. Who knows? The whole building looked like it had given up trying to matter. The paint on the bricks was peeling. There were old metal signs rusted over, and the air back there had this smell like wet cardboard and something electrical, like maybe a fuse had been slowly burning for years. Over the back door was a light that couldn't make up its mind, flickering in and out, casting everything in this weird stop-motion kind of glow. That's when I noticed him. He was just there, not walking, not leaning, not shifting his weight, just standing. Still, if the light hadn't blinked just right, I might not have seen him at all. He was close enough to see us, definitely, but far enough away that I couldn't make out his face, just the shape of him, the way his head turned slowly as we moved. He didn't follow, didn't say anything, but he watched, not curious, not annoyed, just watching, like he'd been waiting for something to happen, and maybe we were it. I didn't say a word to Caleb. He didn't say anything either. I think we both felt it. That wrongness. That itch at the back of your neck when you know something's off but can't prove it. Still can't. Red Hollow was always our go-to when the night felt too quiet. Backroads that curved and dipped through thick woods, mostly untouched, barely lit and empty. That emptiness used to feel freeing, like the world had taken its hands off the wheel and left us to figure it out. So when we left Milford, it made sense to aim the car out that way. It was late, and Red Hollow always felt like a place where something unexpected might happen, but not like this. About 15 minutes in, the road started to narrow, just dirt and shadows at that point. Then my headlights caught something, this pile across the path. At first I thought maybe a tree had fallen, but it wasn't right. It wasn't natural. Limbs, yes, but they were snapped and arranged weirdly. Some brush, a few cinder blocks, like it had been built, not dropped, deliberate. That's the word that got stuck in my head. Caleb didn't say anything when I slowed down. We just looked at it. I don't know what he was thinking, but I felt this weird mix of caution and stubbornness, like I didn't want to be scared by a pile of sticks. So I got out. I grabbed maybe 2 or 3 pieces before I heard it. Off to the right. Not loud, just weight shifting, something stepping on dry leaves, stopping, then again. It wasn't wind. Wind moves. This sound paused, like it was listening to me. I didn't finish clearing the path, didn't even try. I got back in, gave Caleb a look I didn't want to explain, and we bumped the car through the shallow ditch around it. No one followed, nothing came out, but I never shook the feeling that we weren't alone in that moment. Still haven't. We hadn't even been back on the road 10 minutes when Rolling Hill crept up on us. It's one of those winding cuts through the edge of the woods that doesn't look like much until you're in the middle of it. Trees close and tight on either side, shadows stack on top of each other, and houses, if you can even call them that, are tucked so far back you could miss them if you blink. That stretch always felt like a place that didn't want to be found, and that's where we saw him. The house came out of nowhere, set back behind a sagging fence and half-dead hedges. Old, quiet, porch light buzzing like it was on its last breath. And there, just under it, was this man. Not sitting, not pacing, just standing like he'd been rooted to the wood. One arm draped lazily across the railing, body kind of slouched, but his face was locked forward, fixed, watching. He didn't blink. I kept thinking maybe he'd adjust his footing or check a phone, maybe light a cigarette. Nothing, just eyes on us as the car crawled by. I remember slowing down, not intentionally, just instinctively, like some part of me wanted to figure out what he was doing, who he was waiting for. He didn't react. No nod, no tilt of the head, not even a twitch, just stillness. And somehow that was worse than if he'd run at us or yelled or tried to stop us. The silence felt pointed, like we were being marked. I don't know how long we stared back and forth. It couldn't have been more than a few seconds, but I remember the road feeling narrower after we passed him, like the trees leaned in closer, like something had shifted. I remember the moment the tires hit Granite Bluff Drive. Something in me unclenched, even if I didn't realize I'd been wound that tight. That road always had this weird kind of comfort to it. Long, winding stretch along the ridge, just high enough to see the valley spill out below. Little lights from houses and barns scattered like low-hanging stars. I used to love that view. Still do, mostly. It felt like stepping back into familiar territory, like the part of the night where the weirdness fades and everything goes back to normal. But it didn't. Not really. I wasn't saying anything, and I don't think Caleb was either. We weren't tired. We weren't calm. Just quiet. Like if we stayed still enough, maybe nothing else would happen. Maybe we wouldn't have to make sense of what we'd already seen. But that quiet felt heavy, like the night wasn't done with us yet. I kept glancing in the rear view, half expecting headlights or something worse. The trees felt thinner up there, like we could finally breathe, but there was still this feeling riding shotgun, like we'd seen too much in too little time, and now the air didn't sit right. I wanted to believe we were out of it, that Granite Bluff meant we were safe again. But the truth is, I didn't really know what we were trying to get away from in the first place. Maybe that's what made it worse. We were back on the kind of road that should have felt like home, and yet I still felt like we were being watched. Not from the woods, not from behind, just by the night itself, like it hadn't decided if it was going to let us go. We were close to home, at least. That's what I kept telling myself. Fairwood Trail was the last leg of the drive, just a quiet, wooded stretch I'd driven 100 times without a second thought. The kind of road where you coast a little, turn the music down low, and let the stillness carry you the rest of the way. But this time, that stillness felt different, heavier, like the road was holding its breath. I saw it before Caleb did, just a pale shape up ahead, low to the ground, half lost in the headlights. I thought deer right away. Around here, that's always the assumption. One last heart jolt before bed. I even tapped the brakes like I always do, but the closer we got, the less sense it made. It wasn't a deer, wasn't anything on 4 legs. It was a person, a woman, hunched slightly, walking with her back to us in the left lane. She was barefoot, wearing a white shirt and pants that weren't white anymore. Something stained them, dark, uneven smears across the fabric. Could have been mud, could have been blood. I don't know, and I didn't want to. We got within 30 feet before she turned. Slowly, like she was waking up. Her face, it didn't look surprised to see us. Just exhausted, hollow. Her eyes had this sunken, deep-set look, like she hadn't slept in days, or maybe years. Then her arms went up, flailing like she was flagging us down or maybe warning us. I don't know. She moved fast, way too fast for someone who looked that broken. That's when I saw something in her hand. Long, glinting. Knife? Stick? I don't know. I never stopped to ask. My foot hit the gas before my brain caught up. Caleb didn't even question it. Neither of us looked back. Life looks different now. I've got a wife, a steady routine, and we live just a few minutes from Granite Bluff. That same ridge road I used to take on aimless drives is now part of my daily loop grocery runs, work commutes, just everyday stuff. It's funny how a place can feel so familiar and still hold on to things it never gave back. I drive past rolling hills sometimes. Not intentionally. It's just on the way. The house is still there, or at least a house is. I never slowed down enough to be sure. And Fairwood Trail. I avoid it when I can. Not because I think she'll be there, I know she won't, but because I don't want to test what I remember. That stretch of road doesn't feel like a shortcut anymore. It feels like a question mark. Earlier this year, I heard about a bust. Not some routine thing. This was big. Rolling Hill area. Some kind of underground fight ring, drugs, maybe worse. They said it had been going on for years, hidden in plain sight. I didn't jump to conclusions right away, but the timing, the location, it's hard not to connect dots, even if they don't fit neatly. Was that guy on the porch part of it, watching for cars that didn't belong? Was the blockade meant for someone else or us? And her, that woman, what was she running from? Or running toward? I keep circling those questions, like maybe if I go over them one more time, something will click. But it never does. It's not a memory that fades. It's one that lingers. Not loud, not sharp, just always there. And maybe that's the worst part. Not knowing if we stumbled into something by accident, or if something was waiting for us all along.